much. You always give such great introductions. It makes me think like that's not really me, right? So, but thank you so much. Well, thanks everybody for coming. I can't wait to tell you about what I know. And I thought I was gonna like never use this knowledge again, and it was just gonna go to waste, right? But people kept asking me about government contracts. So I brought it into my business about 6 months ago, and I'm really glad that I did because it's really helped me a lot. And I've been helping other people as well. So I'm going to share my screen so you can see my slides. And you can interrupt me whenever you want throughout the class. I'm going to ask you a lot of questions, so please just don't give me dead air because I'll wait. I was an instructor, and military instructor, so we would wait. I'm in a BNI group, and a guy that is in my group, he sells mattresses, and he's like, well, can I sell the mattresses? And I'm like, of course you can, of course. Like the VA has beds everywhere, the military has beds everywhere, any other organization that houses people, right, or has hospitals, whatever you can think of. Yeah, so anything and everything. So you might be able to sell whatever it is that you sell to the government and make a really good living out of it. Okay, so just to let you guys know, stay on mute until you want to say something, because the noise is really weird. And like I said before, just ask whenever you want, and I will ask you questions as well. Disclaimer, I'm not promising you anything, bottom line. You guys to know about me a little bit from Linda's awesome introduction. But I'm a coach, and I was a contracting officer and a senior leader for 15 years with the Air Force and the Navy, and I really enjoyed every minute of it. But I'm really enjoying being a business owner too. It's a lot of fun. Okay, so this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to say, we're going to figure out, are you gov ready? And then I'm going to teach you how to find and evaluate opportunities. And then, of course, to build strategic relationships, because just like in business, right, any other business, you have to network and you have to get to know people and build relationships in order to be successful, right? Same thing with the government. Okay, so are you gov ready? So there's these things called certifications. Well, and then there's this thing called sam.gov. It is a nightmare. I'm just going to warn you right now. It is the biggest piece of garbage. They used to have two separate systems to manage contractor registration and then federal opportunities to be advertised. And then they combined them together along with a bunch of other stuff. And it's just a big, giant mess, that thing. But it functions, and it is what it is. So we figure out how to use it, right? Okay, so to go over the certifications really quick. So this is great to talk to women about this, especially because there's a number of options for you to be able to explore to get what they call small business certifications. So what happens in the federal government is, excuse me, I have a dog hair. So what happens in the federal government is they set aside anything that's under the simplified acquisition threshold for small businesses. Okay, so now that just changed to $350,000. So anything under $350,000 is set aside for small businesses. Okay, so that's really great. You don't have to worry about competing against large businesses for that. But then you go even further down, and amongst all of those small businesses, they have different certifications that gives you kind of like credit almost to get certain work set aside just for that category. So my favorite one, because it has the most advantages, is the 8A program. So that is minority-owned businesses and anybody who is socially disadvantaged. So if you believe that you are socially disadvantaged and you can prove that, because you have to write a statement, and you have to give them a few different narratives about what has happened to you in your life that makes you socially disadvantaged. It doesn't matter if you're a minority or gay or transgender or rural, location person, whatever, that you had economic disadvantages. It doesn't matter. So you all have to do that. So it's a great program because the whole point of it is that the Small Business Administration their goal is to get you from small business to large business in 9 years and graduate you from the program as a large business. And the number, the dollar amount, the thresholds for large and small businesses is pretty high. So like in construction, which is where I focus in on, and I'll tell you why in a minute, but is 19 million a year revenue. Doesn't sound very small to me, but that's what they consider small. And they want you to graduate from the program from that, so they want you to be making more than $19 million a year to be able to graduate. So, and they hold your hand through this whole process. They, you go through a special, certification process. So the main things that you have to remember for this certification is you have to be in business for 2 years, and you have to have had revenue for 2 years. You can have been in business for 5 years, but if you have revenue for 2 years, in a row, then you qualify. There are waivers for that as well. Like, so if you've only been in business 1 year, they can waive it. I will tell you a trick. Everything is waiverable. Every single thing in the world is waiverable in the government. I'll tell you that right now. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be waived. So just remember that when they say no, say, really? Are you sure about that? I don't believe you. Because they probably will change their mind if you give them a good enough reason. Okay, so that's that one. Then we have women-owned business, small business, and then economically disadvantaged women-owned businesses. Okay, and those are a category that gets set aside for themselves, like they compete amongst themselves. So I am a economically disadvantaged women-owned business because at the time that I applied for that, I made under $400,000 in the 3-year period, and I had under $8 million in assets. So that doesn't sound that economically disadvantaged to me, but that's what they consider that. So that's a different category for you to be considered under as a set aside. And then we have the service disabled veteran and the veteran-owned businesses. I'm a service disabled veteran-owned business as well. It's kind of crazy. I went through all of these different certifications, but I didn't bother going and getting any government contracts because I didn't want to, but now I'm helping other people do it. Anyways, I digress. So, and that's pretty self-explanatory, right? The service disabled veteran-owned businesses have a huge advantage because, like the 8A program, they're allowed to get sole source contracts as well. Oh, did I tell you that? I didn't even tell you that, did I? The 8A program, I forgot to tell you that. That's like one of the best parts of it, is that so they get to set aside just 8A, requirements just for the 8A program. But then what they can also do is if there's only one 8A that can do it, and that happens to be you, they will give it to you. You don't even have to compete for the contract. And they'll help you, and they'll walk you through everything because this SBA wants you to succeed, right? So just remember that. And then we have Hub Zone, which I also obtained because my neighborhood had not been rezoned yet. It has since been rezoned. But Hub Zones are historically underutilized businesses areas. So places like that have my house was before it was rezoned. It was in a flood zone, right? And it was underutilized. There was hardly anybody here before they developed it and put a bunch of berms where the rivers are. So that's someplace that they want to, make more robust financially. So the great thing about the Hub Zone is that you, when you're competing against somebody else for a contract, you're allowed to have 10% more price and still be considered equal with the lowest bidder, right? So like, let's say you're at, you're at $1 million and they're at 950. Whatever that 10% is, I'm a bad mathematician. So whatever that 10% is, if you're over it, that you get that leeway, so that way you can consider equal with them as price, as far as price goes. Does that make sense? Did I explain that well enough? Did you understand that? People like me can help you get these things and charge you for it because it's painful, right? And we know the system better than you do, and so we know how to navigate it. That's different because you don't have to pay the government to do anything like this. It's not that bad once you know how to use it, but it's just a piece of garbage. I'm sorry, guys. I have different tools that I use to find opportunities that, and it's kind of funny, the government uses other tools besides the ones that they have. They pay for it. Isn't that ridiculous? Anyway, yeah. All right. So, and by the way, we're in shutdown mode, right? The federal government is not operating, which is insane and ridiculous, but it is what it is. But that does not mean that things stop. okay? Because there's plenty of money hidden in other places where they can use to get people still going, because they have contracts that are still in functioning. They don't get to turn off the contract because the Congress can't figure it out, what they're doing. So don't panic too much about that. And also there's state and local requirements that are going full swing. So whenever something like this happens, don't panic too much. Now, I must say that when I decided to start doing this again, after 2 years and 2.5 years of being away, then Doge kicked in, and Elon was cutting everybody and this and that. And I'm like, oh no, what's happening? But guess what? When they cut federal employees, the work is still there, right? Who do you think is going to do that work? Contractors. Yes, this is how it works. So when the government's getting cut, the contractors are growing. It might take a little while for that to happen, but that's what happens. It's just, and it's much more convenient. It sounds, we pay contractors, well, to do what they have to do because we need their flexibility and whatnot. And we pay them a lot, but comparatively speaking to a pension for somebody's natural life, if they live till 90 and they, made it to $200,000 a year, they're going to be paid a lot of money and, into their old age, right? So if we can avoid that, that's what they're trying to do. So anyways, okay, so since we're talking about money, finance and compliance essentials. Oh, so I don't know if I talked about SAM in here too much. I think I took it out because I hate it, but I will help you with SAM. I didn't even want to talk about it because it's such a piece of junk, but it's inevitable. It's a fact of life that we have to use it. But if you are interested, I will help you with it. Okay. Yeah. I wouldn't be able to teach you everything you need to know in this amount of time anyways. So we're just covering big stuff that you can move forward with. All right. So what do you need financially and compliance wise to be able to function as a contractor, right? Well, so I specialize in construction contracts, and the main reason why I do that is because they weren't going to get cut by Doge, their funding, right? Because there's roads everywhere. There's a million buildings in the federal government. They're not going to get cut, right? So I decided to stay with them. But but with these guys, when they start a construction contract, they have to have a lot of capital, potentially, if it's a big contract, because they don't get paid until they make a first progress payment after they submit everything, right? That could be 60, 90, 120 days into the project, potentially, and when they're ramping up, right? So you have to be able to have the capital available to you somehow or another to function until you can get paid. So that's with construction, but it's with other things too, with R&D, with anything that you have to build something, manufacturing, services. You have to hire a bunch of people to support whatever it is that you got hired to do. So you have to have the credit lines or the capital available to you, in your coffers. And they will find out if you are actually financially responsible. And they'll do a little bit of digging here and there, but nothing crazy. But they'll figure it out pretty quickly if you don't have the ability to support that situation. You also, if you're going to do anything that has to do with cost-type contracts, and this is like with R&D stuff, really complex technical things, they use cost-type contracts because they take away the risk from the contractor and put it on the government. That's why they do cost. So you get paid for your actuals and whatnot. You have to have a special accounting system in place to be able to do that. So remember that. You have to comply with labor laws. So for the trades and certain services, you have to comply with the Davis-Bacon and Wage Determination and Service Contract Act. And that is a lot of money. So you'll see, take a look up Davis-Bacon Wage Determination when you get a chance for your local area. And you are going to die when you see how much a laborer makes, according to this Davis-Bacon thing, because they have an hourly wage and then they have fringe that they have to pay as well. So you have to pay those people that amount because guess what? We do labor checks with construction especially, and we will go around and see how much people get paid, right? So one day I was doing a labor check. I was in Hanscom Air Force Base in Massachusetts, and I go down into the basement of this apartment building for housing, and this young guy is working on a ladder, right? and he's doing something with a pipe, like he's a pipe fitter guy. And but he was by himself, which was weird. And I'm like, okay, so hey, what are you doing? You know? And he's like, oh, I scared the hell out of him, by the way. I felt so sorry for him. He almost fell off the ladder. But he's like, oh, how are you doing? And I'm like, hey, so I'm here to do a labor check. So how much do you get paid? And he goes, oh, I get paid $19 an hour or something like that. And I'm like, $19 an hour? I'm like, are you an apprentice? And he goes, no. I said, you have to have an apprentice card if you get apprentice pay wages, right? And he goes, no, my girlfriend's dad hired me. And so he gave me a really good job, and this is a good job. And I'm like, well, I hate to tell you this, but you should be making $80 an hour, not 19. But you have to be qualified to be able to do that too, right? And so he's like, what? And I said, yeah. And where is he? Where is your soon-to-be father-in-law? Oh, we went to go get some parts. I said, okay, well, you need to leave because you're not getting paid properly, and you're not allowed on the site. I can't imagine what happened when they got home. And the girlfriend found out that the dad wasn't paying them the right thing, and then found out, and oh my goodness, what a drama that I caused. Oops, but that's how it goes. So you have to pay people the right way. All right, and then reps and certs. What does that mean? Representations and certifications. So when you do, when you submit when you go into SAM and fill everything out, you're going to say to them, okay, I'm this small business size. I have this many, employees, and I have this many, this much revenue, and you're certifying, and you're representing yourself as whatever it is that you're saying in the paperwork. So that way we know that you are legitimate and that you're in the right category, and you're not a large business, you're a small business, or vice versa. And a number of other things that you're certifying and saying, yes, I will comply with these terms and conditions, like no human trafficking, and safety first, OSHA stuff, and drug-free workplace, all those types of things you certify in SAM. And so you have to have all that straightened out. And sometimes you have to have licenses or bonds to be able to work. But the interesting thing is, because if you're working with the federal government, you only have to have a license in one state to be qualified to do the work in every state. So yeah, you can have a license in California, but you can go and do the work in Minnesota, and you're covered because you're licensed at least in one place. So that's what they do with nurses and stuff like that, and doctors with the VA. You only have to be licensed in one state, and then you can still travel around. That's the benefit of doing federal work. Cybersecurity, that is a big deal, you guys, nowadays. I just found out that if you want to do any kind of work with the Department of Defense, you have to get the CMMC certification. And it's not terrible, but it's not easy, and you have to pay to get it done. And pretty much anybody who is going to touch the network has to have it. So, and I know some folks that do that. So if you're interested in learning about that, I can help you with that. And depending on where you're working, you have to have a security clearance. Now, even if you're not in a classified environment, but you're working in a location like at a government facility, usually you need to at least pass a public trust background check, at least. So that way, so remember that this is what you're going to have to deal with. Bottom line, if your systems are sound, you're good. There's no minimum scores. You don't have to have a certain credit score or anything like that. You don't have to have a certain dollar amount in your revenue. You just have to make sense, if that makes sense, right? Hopefully that does make sense. Okay, so finding and evaluating opportunities. So, all right, now how do you figure out if the government buys what you sell? Well, you go to this lovely place called sam.gov. And there's a bunch of other places that you can go to as well. And then you need to evaluate the requirement and determine if that's something that you would be a good fit for, and that you would want to do, and it makes sense for you financially and whatnot. So where do you look? Look at sam.gov. You can go to agency websites. They have their stuff posted. And then there's state and city portals. And then there's paid sites. So you see on my little, graphics, the Oxnard, California, that's where I live, and they have their requirements. on the city of Oxnard's website. And then California State, they have e-procure, and all of their requirements are in there. And then I use this thing called SAM Search, and it's this AI-driven platform that has, federal, state, local grants, subcontracting. It has it all in one database, and it can help you write proposals and all this other stuff. It's really cool. Yeah, so those are the things that you can use. Some of these paid ones are really, really expensive, though. Like there's this one, what is it called? I can't remember the name of it, but it's Deltec, I think it is. They're like, it's like $25,000 a year for like a license. It's insane. I don't know, but like big corporations get that, like the Booz Allen Hamiltons and the Lockheed Martins of the world, I suppose. But yeah, some of them are really pricey. So they're making some that are really reasonable now, though, for the average Joe like us. Okay, so now how do you evaluate a requirement to make sure that it's a good fit for you? All right, so I've created this little checklist, that way you can decide for yourself what you want to do. Okay, so you're looking, and well, first you want to figure out what your NAICS code is. It's like the North American Industrial something or other code. I can't remember what the acronym is. NAICS. That's what the acronym sounds like, I suppose. And they're a 6-digit code that you're going to associate with yourself, and you have to have it match whatever the requirement is when you compete for it. Now, luckily though, you can add on as many NAICS codes as you want to the system. You don't have to just pick one or two. You can add as many as you want to your profile. So it's got to have that first, and it's got to be something that you can handle, right? And that you know how to do. It has to match your capabilities. There are a lot of people in this world who do government contracts, and they just do anything that has a good profit margin return, right? And they just figure out how to find the right people to make it happen. Because most of the time, I'll tell you right now, government contractors, for the most part, they're staffing agencies. They're just putting butts in seats to do the work that the government needs you to do, that they can't have GS employees to do. And so that's pretty much what a lot of these companies do. Now, some of them have like really highly technical capabilities, and they have a lot of equipment that they use and whatnot. Oh no, I hope it doesn't. It went out again. I hope it doesn't go out. I had a little flash. Sorry. So there are the big companies like Lockheed and all this knowledge and historical data and whatnot. There are plenty of small tech companies that can do that too, but for the most part, the government doesn't need all that technical capability necessarily. They just need you to hire people for them, is what it comes down to, because they can't hire them. They're not allowed to, or they can't afford them, right? So yeah, it's kind of weird, but take a look when you look at the requirements, and you'll see you're going to be like a staffing agency in a lot of ways. Have liability insurance, and depending on what the work is that you're doing, a number of other things potentially. You have to have a certain amount of liability insurance just to make sure that you have to have workman's comp if you're going to have people in certain roles. Yeah, the list goes on and on. So a requirement, just to give you an idea, a request for quote, which is a small requirement, usually under $100,000, it could be this thick, because that's paper, right? Because it has so many clauses, so many things that they need to cover. It's pretty crazy. And that's why people stay away from government contracts, because it's a little overwhelming. But once you figure out how to navigate it, it's not. And you'll understand why they do that, because they have to make sure that all of these things are covered. It's just the way it is. Okay, so where is it in the acquisition process, this requirement that you're looking at? So if you see something that's in RFP stage, request for proposal stage, you're probably too late, okay? Because you want to be able to engage with the government, and you can't engage with the government when you're in RFP stage, because you're not allowed to talk. Everything that you talk to them about is formalized, it's written, because they don't want to give anybody an unfair competitive advantage, okay? So you want to get in early. So that's when you look for things like sources sought. What are they doing? They're looking for sources, right? Request for information, RFIs. What is that? They're looking for information, because I'll tell you right now, the government doesn't know what it's doing when it's buying most of these things. That's why they're asking people to help them, because they don't have the expertise. You do, right? So this thing called draft RFPs, draft request for proposals. They'll put those out there because they'll be like, you know what? I don't know if we have everything that we need for this requirement in the documents. So what they do is they put it out there to the public, and they say, okay, contractors, look at this and tell us what we're missing. Tell us if it's set up the right way, if the CLIN structure, the contract line item structure, is properly set up, so that way you can bill properly and we can pay you easily, and it goes with the flow of the requirement. They don't know any of this, right? And a lot of times, people that are doing this work are contracting officers, not technical people. We end up doing a lot of the stuff for the technical people because they just don't do it. I don't know why. They're supposed to do market research, but the contracting officer ends up doing it. But yeah, but they don't have that knowledge. You do. That's when you get in with them. So respond to the draft RFP, the RFI, the sources sought, right? Because then they'll get to know you. And also the reason why they're doing it is to see if they can set it aside for small business category. Okay. So if you have your certifications, you say, oh, me, I can do it. I'm an 8A, I'm a, economically disadvantaged woman owned, whatever. And they're going to be very happy to hear that, but they want more than one of you if possible, because they want to be able to compete it. Because the only people that they can give sole source contracts to are 8As and service disabled veteran owned. They can't just give you the contracts. So then they would have to open up to the rest of the small business if they didn't have enough of that category to narrow it down like that. So the market research phase is really important for a lot of reasons. So you get to know, and you can talk to them as much as you want. You can harass them. You should do that and see what happens, and we'll talk a little bit about relationships in a second. But okay, so then we want to know where it is. Can you do it financially? Do you have a line of credit large enough to sustain you till you get paid? Because sometimes the government doesn't pay. Now, they pay on time, okay? You never have to chase them for an invoice like you would a residential person or whatever. But sometimes you do have to chase them. The difference is they owe you interest. If they're net 30 for everything, the federal government. And if they go past 30, they will pay you interest on that invoice if it was submitted properly and they didn't pay it. So you need to stay on top of them. I've tried to close out contracts where they have $300,000 in unpaid invoices or unpaid requirement because the contractor never invoiced. I don't know how that happens, but it does a lot. I think they just get overwhelmed. Anyways, I don't know how you lose $300,000 though, but yeah, so it has to be financially feasible for you. You have to be able to meet the deadlines, make the requirements work. And what kind of competition is there, right? Profit margins are better in the federal government and the state and local as well than private sector usually. Sometimes it's a lot, sometimes it's a little. So on average, if you do anything with emergency requirements, that's 50 to 80% profit margin. So if you can figure out how to do that, you're going to be in a good spot because it's supply and demand, right? I mean, I remember when in the AOR in the Middle East, they would pay $5 for a bottle of water sometimes. It's just that was considered fair and reasonable because that's what it was. We didn't have a choice. And that when you're in an emergency situation, like you remember like Katrina when they had those cruise ships that were on the ocean housing people. I think we paid like $100,000 a day for those cruise ships, but that was fair and reasonable at the time, right? Okay, and then so then you just make your go or no go decision, and you make the decision, then you go on to the next thing. Okay, so partnerships. Okay, so as a former contracting officer, I never understood why contractors were calling me to pitch me. I'm like, I don't care about you. I don't care about you at all. I just want you to submit your paperwork the right way on time, and then I'll get to know you once I award. Some contracting officers are like that, some are not. But the more important people for you to know in the government are the small business liaisons and the program side of the house, the people who are managing the technical piece of the requirement, right? The user, the requirement owner, right? You want to get to know them and talk to them, so that way they can see what you can do for them, and then they will have, they'll be more swayed toward you when it's time to compete for the requirement. The contracting officer won't do that. They have to stay impartial, even though sometimes they don't. And the small business liaison officers, they're great. They're all over the place. They work for the agency that they're under, but they are part of the Small Business Administration, and so they're kind of like matrixed out, and they're there to support you and to be able to help you get jobs and to figure out who you can partner with and whatnot. So one of my clients, he's a marine construction guy in Florida, and so he can do all this work, but he doesn't have the bond capability to do it. He can only get $1 million bond right now because he's fairly new in the business. And all these jobs that are great are like $10 to $25 million. So I'm like, okay, we need to talk to the small business office in Florida and see who we can partner you up with. So that way you can use their bond and their equipment and everything else. So that way you can get the experience, get the money, and not have to worry about being the prime necessarily yet. And so we already talked about the sources sought, draft RFPs, and RFIs. They have these really cool things called industry days. And so when an organization has, when they decide that, okay, this is what our budget's going to be, and this is what we need to buy over the next, they call it the FIDEP, the 5-year period, but usually it's just a year at a time, because that's how the Congress budgets for the DoD anyways, for everybody actually. They have these big industry days where they have everybody come, different contractors, and the organization briefs the contractors first on all the different things that they're going to do, and then they set up meetings, like individual meetings, to talk to the people that the different contractors. So that's your opportunity to show them what you've got. Okay. And then conferences, there are all these different conferences all over the country that are pretty cool. Different, like when I worked at SOCOM, at Special Operations Command, that was a really fun conference to go to because they had all the cool gadgets, like the robot men, and yeah, it was pretty cool. Cool guns, knives, whatever. Okay, so crafting a capability statement. So this is your commercial, you guys. This is like your business card brochure. I set it up like this because this is the king of like contracting. This guy I really like. His name is Neil. Oh, I can't remember his last name. McConnell, I think. He's on my LinkedIn. I'll share him with you guys. He created this. He created the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and he says that this is what a capability statement should look like. And a lot of other people say that too. So I'm going to go with that. Okay. I've seen them plenty of times before, but like I said, I was a contracting officer and I didn't really care. People think we care and we don't. But the program side of the house does. So these are the things that you need to have in your capability statement. It needs to not have a lot of words. It needs to be a little bit basic, and it needs to go in the Z formation, right? Because that's how your eyes go, right? So you want to have your certifications, your cage code, all your identifying information, your logo, a little bit about you, your core competencies, past performance, what differentiates you from everybody else, and then your good stuff like your point of contact and your NAICS codes and stuff like that. Okay. And then what winning looks like, right? So why would you want to get a government contract? Sounds like a big pain in the butt, right? Well, you get multi-year contracts sometimes 1 year, sometimes a few months, but sometimes up to 5 years. Okay. Progress payments, so you'll always know when you're going to get cash. Guaranteed pay, and a repeatable pipeline. So once you get in the system, if you screw it up, there's something wrong with you. Because you are, as long as you perform well and you make nice with the government side of the house, you are going to be told in advance when things are coming down the pike, so you can compete for them. And when you're in the incumbent, you have the advantage because you're already doing the work, right? So it's repeatable. Why contractors miss out? So they don't have their certification, so they make it that they're invisible. You can't see them. Compliance mistakes. So a lot of contractors, they think, oh, well, I'm such a great, technical person at this. I know how to do this. And they submit a proposal, but it looks like crap. Their T's aren't crossed, their I's aren't dotted. The contracting officer won't even let the technical people look at it. You're gone. right? So you have to have everything squared away in a row, or else you will not get past go. And then they're just bidding blind. Oh, I'll just bid on everything. It's a waste of time and money, because it costs money to do these things because of time and experience and different people that you have to hire to be able to do some of these things. So what I like to do is I like to do this thing called a contract readiness audit. And I go through everything with you. I have a bunch of different questions that I ask you to see where you're at and to see if you would be a good fit to start looking at requirements now, or maybe in a little while, or way down the road. And so if you would like to schedule one of those with me, you can just go on that QR code and schedule something. And I would love to be able to help you out and do that free of charge. And so the thing that I'm offering you guys is on December 3rd, I'm starting my group coaching mastermind. And that's going to be this information plus a bunch more over a 90-day period. So you'll be able to be contract ready within 90 days, if not sooner, and start bidding on contracts. I'll get you your certification, I'll get you registered, I'll get you, educated enough to understand the process, so that way you know what you're looking at and to bid. So if you're interested in that, there's the QR code for that. And there's a bunch of bonuses that come along with this with the program. So about $10,000 worth of stuff for $3,000 over a 90-day period. So things like I give you a few coaching sessions one-on-one, a strategic growth map, because I'm a profit acceleration coach as well. Comprehensive support, you can hit me up 24/7 on WhatsApp. Access to my virtual training, my virtual MBA and online financial training. And I've created this cool AI platform for GovCon stuff. So that's coming soon, and you'll have access to that. And I created an app to be able to do proposals and to match you up with the right requirements. So that'll be available to you as well. And also, if you like, I will give you my newest book electronically today, just for coming. Okay, I went fast at the end, so that way we can ask questions if anybody does. That was a lot of information, so sorry for fire hosing, but.
No, we've got a bunch of questions in the chat, Nikki, and I think you covered all the information at exactly the right pace. So that's great. And thank you for offering a free copy of your book to everyone who attends. So please feel free to jump into chat and give everybody the link that they can download your book from. That's amazing. Love that. Built to Scale, Creating the Foundation of a Thriving Business. Everyone gets a free electronic copy of Nikki's book. That's an incredibly generous offer. So thank you so much for that, Nikki.
Yeah.